Hey burners! Well, it's the day after, and reports from California are not looking good. Well, it's looking good in as much, because I always try to look on the bright side, so it's looking good in as much as that the fraud is being exposed. So, but if the other previous states, even being taken to court, even in Kentucky, Bernie Sanders requesting and getting a recount done in Kentucky, even if fraud was videotaped, even no matter what, it's not changing the outcome of anything. Yes, it's videotaped. There's numbers that add up that show fraud is being done, as far as like with the exit polls. But what's being done? Is it changing anything? No. Bernie still didn't win. Now here's a report from the Justice Gazette and some others, and they've compiled it into this one story. They're conducting an investigation into voting irregularities and the theft of Bernie Sanders' apparent California landslide victory by those supporting Hillary Clinton. According to popular the person Francis Fisher, a lawsuit is being prepared to require the counting of all the provisional ballots. If this lawsuit is successful, the actual vote count is expected to become known, and Sanders will likely have a landslide victory in California. I think it was 1.5 or 1.8 new voters had registered, mostly young voters. Every poll that you look at that shows, or exit polls, or polls, I don't know what type of polls they're called, but they do the age range, the education, the income, who they support, what party they're in, those types of polling. I think they're entrance polls or exit polls. In any case, overwhelmingly, I'll say 90% of the time, Bernie Sanders draws the young people. Young meaning between 18 to, I think the cutoff point was 25. Now, not all 1.5 or 1.8 million people were young. A lot of them were new voters. Crossovers from independents or independent voters. Because in California, you were supposed to be, and that's another issue that I'll discuss, you were supposed to be able to be registered as an independent and request a crossover ballot. A Democratic crossover ballot. But that's a different story, which, like I said, I'll discuss. So in any case, back to this little article on the Justice Gazette. The theft of California hasn't deterred Sanders from his course. I have not been able to watch his speech. He has promised to fight on, while noting it is still a steep climb. Given all the states where voter fraud in favor of Hillary Clinton has been allowed to swing primaries from Sanders to Clinton, it is in fact a steep uphill climb to restore democracy and force the now undemocratic Democratic Party to nominate the man the vast majority of American voters have voted for or tried to vote for. Yeah, that's for sure. Because if you look at that graph that I had posted in the comment section below, and it was in 2 videos prior to this one, you will see the exit poll variance. I noted that in a separate column in states. It's just like unbelievable. But I'm so happy that Bernie has ran, because if he didn't run, none of this would have been exposed as much as it has been. It might have taken years, and that might have been too late. So, back to the article. It has been learned from poll workers that 50 to 90% of voters who were supposed to have been eligible to vote in the Democratic primary were told they would have to vote provisional ballot. That is wrong. 50 to 90% of the fucking people that went there to vote couldn't vote. Well, they did vote on a fucking provisional ballot that's going to be ripped up and tossed. There were 2 irregularities leading to the forced use of provisional ballots instead of regular ballots. The first was that previously registered voters' names had been removed from the rolls. Why? The second was that someone, in most cases not the voter, had marked them as vote-by-mail voters, but they had received no ballot in the mail. Now, when you if you are registered as a vote-by-mail person, then what you do, you have to bring in the ballot, either completed or turn it in and then go use the machine. This way they don't think somebody is making 2 votes. So, in the past, in other states, now California is huge, so I guess it would have been hard for them to switch everybody from Democrat to Republican, or switch everybody to, well, see, California is independent, so you can vote as an independent, so that's why they did that. They just checked that, went through the voter rolls and checked that little thing, the little box saying that they registered to vote by mail, but meanwhile they didn't get any mail, so they can't turn in their mail-in ballot because they didn't get one. And if you can't turn in your mail-in ballot, you're listed as a mail-in ballot, well then guess what, you get a provisional ballot. Now, if so many people had this happen to, that is not like somebody trying to cheat. A couple of people trying to cheat. I want to get 2 votes in for Bernie, so let me say that I didn't get the mail-in ballot, but I know I mailed it in. No, if it happens to too many people, that is beyond a coincidence. Oddly, virtually all of those not allowed to vote and forced to vote provisional ballots were Bernie Sanders supporters. Oddly. I mean, I'm not dissing this article. I'm saying oddly, with anger in my voice because of the freaking DNC and or the superdelegates and or whoever tentacles were reached in the California Department of Elections by Medusa herself. Now the next oddity is even more curious, this Gazette article goes on to say. Poll workers in Los Angeles and in Orange County, which I'm sure are huge counties, I know Los Angeles is, report that Bernie won the electronic votes in their precincts by well over 2-to-1 margin. The opposite of the results of the vote count. What? What? Also, oh wait, I missed a line. The contrast between this and the outcome is indicative of vote flipping. Also, the outcome does not match what anyone who has conducted polling in this state knows. Below the election night video is a video about black box voting, hacking democracy. The Democratic Party has essentially endorsed this video, showing it at various conventions, and another video of a computer programmer confessing to creating a vote-flipping program. If you add the lower figure of 50% of voters who were not allowed to vote regular ballots for Bernie to the votes he has already received, you wind up with a substantial Bernie Sanders landslide victory in California. The primary beneficiary of the fraud is Hillary effing Clinton. As for provisional ballots, acclaimed BBC reporter, author, and election fraud expert Greg Palast calls them placebo ballots. Greg is the reporter who exposed the voter fraud in Florida in the year 2000. Nightline even used his footage in covering the story. And then they have a how California is being stolen from Sanders right now. The Justice Gazette has conducted considerable polling, and the official results reflect the opposite of how people said they were going to vote. At the California Democratic Convention, most of the elected delegates were Bernie or bust. Ask yourself, when Sanders gets enthusiastic crowds of thousands upon thousands in California, 60,000 according to police in Oakland alone. That's just in Oakland. Compared to laid-back crowds of hundreds for Clinton, who voted for Clinton? Ask your neighbors, ask your co-workers, ask fellow students if they voted for her, and then start asking how she supposedly won the election without the support of the voters. Or just look at Alameda County, Berkeley County, Oakland County, where Sanders was greeted by hundreds of thousands of active supporters, where Clinton is very unpopular, and where Clinton's percentage and Sanders' percentage appears to be the exact reversal of what the residents of that county know to be the case. If you walked into any store or group setting, other than a Clinton gathering, of course, and asked who was going to vote for Clinton, you would find that nobody, or maybe one or two people, would be considering voting for her. Almost all the rest would be planning to vote for Bernie Sanders. We know. And at the Justice Gazette, reporters did just that. Poll workers in Orange and Los Angeles County have reported that Bernie won the electronic votes in their precincts by well over 2-to-1 margin. So how does this translate into a victory for Clinton? Ask yourself why an excited crowd of thousands came to the election night event of a loser, when this kind of crowd has never come to the event of a primary loser in California's history. Last night, when he made that speech, there were thousands of people there to see him. And in the past, they're saying California, they knew the candidate lost, they didn't show up that much, but it was different last night for him. Perhaps this is because Sanders didn't lose. They thought he won. Votes can be flipped in less than a second by someone walking into the registrar's office. Just watch the Beverly Harris's documentary Hacking Democracy and the video of a confession on the creator of a program designed to do just that. Prior to going into California primary, it was known that Bernie Sanders was going to insist that the DNC nominate the winner of the California primary. Clinton is very unpopular in California, and it would have been impossible for her to acquire the votes to win legitimately. There was only one way for Clinton to win, and that was to rig the freaking election. Those running the Democratic Party have made it clear, following the known rigging of elections in other states, that they either considered election fraud and rigging a proper way to win a nomination, or don't care if a candidate wins this way. They don't care. They do not care about our democracy. They don't care about us. All they care about is their fucking pocket. Back to forcing the majority of Sanders voters to vote uncounted provisional ballots. You may ask how Hillary knew who to disenfranchise. There's multiple ways. First, new voters were overwhelmingly planning to vote for Bernie. Second, of the NPP, no party preference voters, the vast majority were Sanders supporters. But it may also be the Sanders campaign that owes the voters an apology for letting Clinton know which voters to disenfranchise. Last December, the relationship with NGP Van and Clinton, and that Van's apparent willingness to engage in unethical conduct on behalf of the Clinton campaign was widely exposed. Yet, the primary applications the Sanders campaign uses for canvassing were obtained from the NGP Van. That's the database, the DNC's database for the registered rolls of all the voters that are with the Sanders or with the Clinton, or back then it was other candidates. One of the main application programs the Sanders campaign used for canvassing is called Minivan. It is well known that many, if not most, manufacturers leave a back door allowing them to access the programs. In Arizona, Sanders poll workers were told on the last day before the election that it was known that their Minivan program had been hacked, and that on that pre-election day, people would be using paper canvassing sheets. This was just for the last-minute staff. Almost all the canvassing had been done already in Arizona. So what did the Sanders volunteers tell Minivan and possibly the Clinton campaign about the voters they canvassed or called? They marked if the person was strong Sanders, leaning Sanders, strong Clinton, leaning Clinton, or undecided, among other things. If you were Clinton and you wanted to disenfranchise millions of voters, wouldn't it be nice to know who was supporting your opponent? Well, for the record, reporters of the Justice Gazette did bring their concerns about Minivan to the attention of the Sanders campaign following Arizona. However, the campaign went back to using this in state after state after state. While the public is mostly loyal to Sanders, some question the loyalty of some of his staffers. Yes. Canvassers were given wildly inaccurate precinct phone and walking lists that left off most of the voters who were planning to support Sanders. Canvassers were supposed to skip about 20 or more houses for every one that they hit. Usually, the one selected had the wrong occupant, while the new occupants of the selected houses, as well as people who were supposed to be passed over in the other 20, often said they were registered and planning to vote for Bernie to canvassers who chose to speak to them anyway. It was pointed out that the campaign that it would have been easier and more productive to go door to door to all the houses than to search around for the one inaccurate address on the street a mile from the last address. Another key alert as to possible infiltrators was the odd treatment of the press. While Correct the Record and reporters, hackers from other organizations and media groups promoting Hillary Clinton were treated like royalty, members of the press who had gone on record supporting Sanders were often treated with contempt by certain members of the team running logistics at the rallies. Correct the Record, the PAC paying $1 million to hackers who put child pornography onto Sanders' Facebook pages and then got them closed down, was given the best filming location in San Pedro after that same prime filming location had been denied to news teams favorable to Sanders. Oh, isn't that sweet? On election night, several reporters favorable to Sanders commented on how rudely they were being treated. Reginald Hubbard and Jesse Cornett, who reportedly threatened some of the mild-mannered, more loyal press with loss of equipment, removal or confiscation of their press credentials, which they had brought with them, and removal of the actual reporters from the event in response to polite questions about the sound arrangements. Most of the pro-Sanders reporters were placed on a riser near distorted speakers and denied access to the event's sound boxes they had been promised and which were provided for other media. One reporter, a very sweet woman who had been traveling on a bus following the candidate, seemed to disappear from the event after she reported that she had been rudely treated by these same staff people prior to the speech. The fix was in before the primary. An instructional video for poll workers told them to give provisional ballots to NPP voters, party, people that hadn't chosen a party. Official conduct that would have been illegal in California. Associated Press joined in the effort to try to fix the election by calling the nomination for Clinton the night before the election, when Associated Press knew or should have known that Clinton did not have enough pledged delegates and would not have enough on June 7th to be the nominee. This appears to have been part of the overall attempt to suppress the vote, as Sanders has repeatedly pointed out. He has said, if there's a large voter turnout, we will win. If there's a very large turnout, we will win huge. If there is a low turnout, we will lose. Well, there was a huge turnout. In spite of AP's false call, the actual turnout was very large, and for the suppression, the evidence supports the theory that Sanders would have won by a very wide margin. Overall, it was a tough night for Sanders supporters. The average American is not about to support Hillary Clinton. Nobody at the election night event believed there was any accuracy in the results at all, despite the official results, which left off half or more of the voters. The Sanders supporters were optimistic, as they knew in their hearts that Sanders had won California. With the election rigging and theft so obvious, I get so mad. The bulk of the public does not believe that Clinton is the legitimate nominee. The bulk of the Democratic voters will never accept Clinton or vote for her in the general election. No, she's not getting my vote, and I know 2,380 people that are not. Some are calling the theft of the nomination a coup d'etat, treason, and sedition on Clinton's part. All true, all true, all true. As for the voters who weren't allowed to vote, the buck stopped with two people, California Secretary of State and Clinton supporter Alex Padilla, and Hillary Clinton herself, the candidate who benefited from their voter for suppression. Almost everyone in America knows or is related to one of the Clinton victims. Clinton's apparent crimes are against the American people, and this matters more than whether a clown is running as a nominee on the other party. America has survived racist clown presidents in the past, but it is not about to endure a president who has committed crimes that have destroyed the right to vote of people they know. The crowd at the Sanders rally is not going to give up. In fact, they are energized and angry. And most of them have as their top goal defeating Hillary Clinton in all elections. If Bernie were to endorse her, his supporters would be saddened and many would feel betrayed. But the Sanders voters have made it clear that they will not follow Bernie to Clinton. In view of the information from polling place workers about Sanders winning by more than 2-to-1 margin, and in view of the removal of 2/3 or more of his votes from the official results, the Gazette declares Bernie Sanders the landslide victory winner of the 2016 California primary election. And I do too, and I'm sure many others do. So, thank you for letting me read that to you. You could have read it on your own, but you wouldn't have